This episode opens with Princess Alenzia receiving an urgent message from Vestal. He's relayed the rendezvous point for the reinforcements. Their plan is to await his soldiers and combine forces. Vestal has cautioned, however, that the troops have been dispatched under the guise of a search for Hadis. Once the reinforcements arrive, a swift return to the designated location is crucial. Furthermore, dragon riders are out of the question. The arriving forces comprise infantry and cavalry, making rapid movement a significant challenge. They must proceed with utmost care. If their true objective is discovered after the infantry and cavalry join them, they risk facing a devastating counterattack. Hideo offers to go personally, but the suggestion is met with unanimous disapproval. Everyone is profoundly worried about his safety, Jill especially appearing distressed. Observing their concern, Hideo relents, stating, "In that case, Ryuutei will accompany me as my lieutenant." This provokes Ryuutei, who vehemently opposes serving under anyone. The princess intervenes, reminding them that anger is a luxury they cannot afford, and approves the arrangement. She further suggests that Ryuutei's inclusion would be beneficial. Drawing both men close, she issues a stern warning to maintain composure and avoid any errors, stressing the vital importance of their safe return. The narrative then shifts to Lawrence and his companion. He informs her they'll be taking the left-hand path, a shortcut, though a somewhat treacherous and neglected one. Unexpectedly, Zeke emerges from the right, taking Lawrence by surprise. Zeke explains that he's become disoriented, a typical mishap for someone of his clumsy nature. They engage in a brief squabble, and it becomes clear they might have to make camp for the night due to their navigational blunders. Meanwhile, we find Jill with Hideo. She attempts to engage him in conversation, but observes his sullen disposition. It's evident he's envious of Lawrence. In a strained moment, Hideo remarks, "The three of you function seamlessly as a unit, so perhaps you should simply accompany him." A stunned Jill responds, "Your Majesty, are you still harboring resentment towards Lawrence? He's practically a sibling to me." Hideo retorts, "I harbor no resentment whatsoever," although his tone and facial expression contradict his words. An exasperated Ryuutei punches Hideo to silence him. Dismissing the gossip surrounding Jill and Lawrence as pure fabrication, the group proceeds on their journey. Hadis converses privately with Camilla, who raises the subject of Jill's account regarding Lawrence. She assures Hadis that Lawrence isn't a spy, as some speculate. Instead, he's in Prince Gerald's employ. Alternatively, within the narrative, she expresses skepticism regarding Princess Ferris's purported clandestine peace mission, questioning its authenticity. This heavily suggests Prince Gerald holds some sway over Lawrence. Hadis observes, "Jill, you may be exhibiting a degree of naivete, understandable given your youth. It's possible the situation isn't as complex as it appears." Jill inquired, "Didn't the possibility of a misjudgment concern you?" He calmly replied, "I have no such concerns, for ultimately, the identity of my betrayer is irrelevant. I shall remain triumphant." His words revealed to Jill his expectation of inevitable betrayal, a lesson she vowed to remember. She recognized her duty to ensure his isolation never occurs. As darkness descends, Camilla sits with Zeke, encouraging him to take some rest. Just then, Lawrence appears, confessing his inability to sleep. Camilla advises him to rest in order to rejoin the other troops tomorrow without incident. He nervously admits that the prospect of impending battle fills him with apprehension. He expresses concern that Prince Vestal might not be a true ally, or might deliberately disregard their strategy. Nevertheless, they have no alternative but to fully commit to the endeavor. Aaliyah comprehends his veiled reference to Hadis. Lawrence confirms this with a nod, stating, "They have to anticipate a trap. If Prince Ryuutei or Princess Alenzia were leading," he elaborates, "they would likely feign allegiance, then breach neutral's defenses from within." Zeke adds, "That's the absolute worst-case outcome. Internal division would spell our doom. But if the Emperor advances with only a small contingent, the enemy will undoubtedly attempt to seize him. Should that occur, both the prince and the princess would capitulate. No one prolongs a hopeless fight for his majesty." Zeke then comments, "No one, except perhaps the dragon's wife. If they are orchestrating an escape route for the Emperor, this approach could aid them in anticipating ambushes and mitigating losses." He asks if the dragon's wife has mentioned him. Zeke replies that her wish was for his safe return to Credo. Zeke then questions Lawrence's comfort level with his current situation, inquiring about his sister's well-being. Lawrence assures him she's in good health, and there's no cause for alarm. He continues, "His Majesty seems to have shown no interest in her and has left her undisturbed, despite her residence within the inner court. Her family placed her there to curry favor with the court. The Emperor's current preference is a handsome young man with long hair." Suddenly, Lawrence signals for silence as Imperial Dragon Knights fly overhead, led by a crimson dragon. Zeke inquires about the meaning of this, but Lawrence admits his ignorance. As long as Princess Ferris remains present, we won't face excessive pressure. That's her purpose there. I had no desire to incur a debt to the dragon's wife. Eventually, we will inevitably confront each other as adversaries. He observes that there were 3 dragons, likely messengers, spies, or supplementary guidance for the Dragon Knights in case of unforeseen events. Their present location is optimal for regrouping. He's aware of their proximity to the dragon's nest and intends to seek refuge there. Zeke cautions, encirclement would present a grave danger. Lawrence responds, provided we don't provoke the dragons, there's no reason to fear an attack. This is the ideal hiding place. Lawrence then requests Zeke to relay this plan to the dragon's wife, a request that leads Zeke to suspect Lawrence believes it might be a trap. Zeke asks, "What's your intention?" Lawrence replies, "My limited magical abilities render me virtually useless in Kratos. So long as the outcome is favorable, the risks are justifiable, and my advancement won't be impacted. I've determined that assisting them is in my best interest, for the sake of my future. I'll ensure our victory in this battle." He then remarks on Jill, stating, "She has no supporters here. Even if she doesn't wed the prince, she would still be regarded as a war leader in Kratos." Camilla interrupts, requesting he refrain from further discussion to conserve his energy. Lawrence answers, "No matter how much I speculate, I can't fathom the dragon's wife ever abandoning the emperor." Zeke remarks, "She might surrender him if it meant safeguarding the leader. It's a pragmatic approach to self-preservation." Statements like these are precisely why she hasn't left him yet. As their conversation concludes, Lawrence notes, "If all goes according to plan, we'll arrive at the rendezvous point tomorrow. For now, rest and avoid overexertion." After his departure, Camilla comments, "He's a decent young man." Camilla then muses aloud, "He's such a decent young man. I despise this part of me that wishes to eliminate him now, while the opportunity remains." Zeke replies, "I've entertained similar thoughts." The next day, in the forest, Lawrence observes, "There appears to have once been a substantial river here, but the dragons constructed their nest above it. They dammed the water using stones, causing the river to dry up. Let's utilize this dry riverbed and proceed towards the dragon's nest." Ryuutei objects, "Even the imperial family is forbidden from entering the dragon's nest. It is a sacred ground." Lawrence reassures him, "Have no fear, the meeting point lies ahead. Let's make haste, but the cover here is sparse, so remain close to the riverbed. We'll use the trees for concealment as we advance." Meanwhile, Jill speaks to Hadis, saying, "You mentioned your own inability to enter the dragon's nest." Hadis responds, "My status as emperor negates any such restrictions. Rafi tends to be excessively protective. I simply wish to sample a new dish." Rafi interjects, "You shouldn't venture there at all. It seems we're in the same predicament." Jill responds, "I'd be curious to try it as well, but I'm certain Rafi wouldn't approve. I have no intention of seeking out a black dragon." Suddenly, a dragon appears overhead. "It's Princess Alenzia." Ryuutei exclaims, "I assumed she wouldn't utilize dragons for communication to avoid attracting unwanted attention." Hadis replies, "Some urgent development must have compelled her to change her approach." The group dismounts as Jill notes, "The horses will grow agitated if a dragon approaches too closely." She instructs Camilla, Zeke, and Lawrence to attend to the horses while Ryuutei remains with Hadis. Jill then proceeds alone. Princess Alenzia asks Jill, "Has something transpired? I received reports of dragons flying towards neutral last night. Was it a trap, or not?" The princess replies, "Indeed it was. Quite unforeseen. Summon Ryuutei at once." Abruptly, Alenzia seizes Jill and holds a sword to her throat, offering apologies to the group. A man appears with a multitude of dragons and declares, "Your actions are justified, princess. Apprehend the impostor emperor, the one destined to bring ruin upon our empire. We seek to avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Alenzia responds, "My uncle has no intention of killing them. He merely wishes to persuade them." The group is stunned by the unfolding betrayal. Jill cries out, desperate to save Hadis. Hadis, unleashing his power, eliminates several soldiers. Ryuutei, Zeke, and Camilla implore Hadis to escape with them, but he refuses, saying, "Leave me and flee." They reject his plea and coerce Ryuutei into escaping with them. Observing their retreat, Hadis thinks to himself, the existence of individuals who remain loyal. It's a miracle. Hadis commands Rafi to prepare for combat, but Rafi cautions, "Our magical energy is insufficient to withstand the false celestial sword." Hadis unleashes his power, directing his words towards Alenzia. "Do you consider wielding a dragon against me an act of clemency?" Alenzia speaks to the dragon, pleading, resist Hades's control. The knights charge at Hades, but he cuts them down. Both Prince Alenzia and Restiard are awestruck by his might, exclaiming, "He's a monstrous being, not a man." Hades strikes the prince and reaches Alenzia and Jill. He is poised to kill Alenzia for her treachery, but Jill intervenes, saying, "There's no need to kill her now. Prolonged fighting will only leave you incapacitated again." Hades collapses onto Jill. The prince seizes the moment, capturing Hades and shoving Jill aside, stating, "With Hades secured, you are no longer of use to us." Alenzia cries out to the prince, "This deviates from our agreement." Jill declares, "I must safeguard him. Act if you are able. I am the dragon's wife."